So, the first Mongol invasion of Japan. Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, invaded Japan in 1274 after all his diplomatic approaches failed for the previous 6 years. He amassed a fleet of 800 to 900 ships, which carried an army of around 16,000 to 40,000 soldiers from Korea to Japan. They reached Tsushima by the 4th of November. They met a small amount of samurai and their retinues, who fought hard but were eventually overrun by the overwhelming number. On November 13th, they arrived at Iki Island. There they also met a small force of samurai and the local populace. They fought hard, but eventually they were pushed back to a castle and then eventually overwhelmed. After Iki Island, they crossed the sea and landed in Hakata Bay on November 19th. The next day would be the Battle of Bunai, or the First Battle of Hakata Bay. Now that they were on part of the mainland, Japan actually was able to have a force there that ranged from 3,000 to 6,000 soldiers. The battle was a bit chaotic because Japanese soldiers really didn't know non-Japanese tactics. The Japanese were used to having one mounted samurai with a bow and then being surrounded by a few men to help defend them. And they were also used to one-on-one combat, where they basically just called out someone in the battlefield and then they fought one-on-one. But with the Mongols, they used usual ancient tactics where they had the shield wall and moved as one unit and had the spears poking out and all that. They were also more organized since they had a general that oversaw the battlefield and then had drums that signaled retreat and attack and other orders like that. They also had their famous horse archers, and they also had explosives, which freaked the Japanese soldiers and their horses out. The battle only lasted for a day until nightfall, where they pushed the Japanese back to basically Mizuki Fortress there. But the Mongols didn't pursue them. They fell back to the beach and stayed there. But the Japanese didn't know that, and they prepared for basically a last stand at that fortress. And by morning, the Mongols were basically gone. They either departed because one of their main generals was killed, or it was a reconnaissance mission for testing their strength and seeing how well they would fight back. And there are some accounts where they say that there was a storm that came and basically killed a third of their army and severely damaged their fleet, which forced them to fall back to Korea. So that was the first time that Japan was invaded by the Mongols, and how they survived and were protected by a divine wind or kamikaze.